So what is block sanding and how do we get from something that looks like this to that with this? In this video, I'll talk about block sanding. Let's have a bit of an in-depth look at block sanding. What does it do for us? Of course it gets our surface, our shape, our car, our panel ready for paint, but what are we doing? We're controlling shape and we're perfecting surface profile. It's pretty easy, right? However, there's a lot of shapes to deal with. So how do we go up through the grits and get this shape perfect so we can go from something that looks like this to something that looks like that? A well-prepared car makes for a perfect paint job. So block sanding is what gets us the perfect paint job. But what is block sanding? It's not just to get in the block and sanding this thing and it will become perfect straight away. The block or the sanding tool does two key things. It controls shape or refines shape. So we've got shape of the surface. So we're trying to perfect the shape of the surface. Then secondly, the sanding process refines surface profile. So they're two different things. And if we can split it up into these two things, we can come up with the best process to do our whole block sanding job and just get that perfect result. To shape versus surface profile. So if we've got a surface and it's kind of like this, you know, we want our shape to be corrected. We might want our shape to be more like that. So that's our high, that's our low, that's our high, our low, and our high. We're trying to correct shape. Now, surface profile, you get a microscope and you zoom in here, little microscope, it's going to be like this with our sandpaper pattern. You know, we've got these two things called peaks and valleys. That's our surface profile zoomed in here. So, you know, this is this here. We need to get the correct surface profile. Sanding or block sanding also does surface profile. So there's controlling shape and there's surface profile. They're done at two different stages with our block sanding process. Let's say we're going to work on this area here, like little, you know, this little insert here, little rectangle here. If we just grab a block, we just grab a block like this, and we just here, and we just go over and over and over, you know, like this, back and forth, again and again and again. Repetitively, we are genuinely going to get there. All we're doing is averaging the surface. The sandpaper on a firm block, back and forth, it's just trying to make an average. It's just trying to bring this whole surface down in one hit and average everything out. We just followed that process. It's going to get there in the end. But we don't really know what's going on. How about we control the shape? Actually know what's happening, use the surface to tell us what's going on, feedback from the scratch pattern, you know, the orange peel of the coatings, we can use guide coat, a whole array of different things. All this information is going to tell us what the shape is doing. Now it's got to choose the appropriate block to control that amount of shape. So controlling shape, our block of choice is super important. Like if we grab the block like this one, it's hard, it's rigid, and we try and sand a shape that's got curvature to it, all the block's going to try and do right in here, all it wants to do is try and mow that curve out and make that flat. Nothing on the car is flat, nothing on the car is straight. So tools that are rigid like this are only appropriate in a very rare example where the surface is flat. We need a sanding block that's relative to the shape. So you grab this little guy, see it'll bend over. That tool, it'll bend to match the profile of the shape. However, maybe a little bit too soft for controlling shape. You need to grab something else that's hard but flexes. Now we've got a tool that flexes to match the curvature of the panel and provides us a hard surface to control shape as we're sanding. So this one here, this is appropriate for here. So shape correction or shape refinement is generally done in your coarser grits of paper. You know, we've done our fill work in 80, we've got some polyester on this, so we're at 120. So we're correcting the shape at 120 with the right block. Everything we're doing in this video, this is just touching the surface. This is really just giving us a real quick overview of block sanding and bodywork. You know, the classes that we do, you know, we do this all over the country, goes into this way more depth. You know, we really break this down, how these shapes were designed in a design studio, how these shapes were built by clay modelers with designers. There's a lot of time and a lot of effort controlling all these shapes. But these videos are very much an introductory to controlling shape and an introductory to this process, but a lot deeper in our training programs. But for now, this one, let's talk exclusively about shape and block sanding on shape. Almost every single shape on a car can be broken down to a form, like a rectangle. So as an example, you can see on this hood, we've got this rectangle through here, right down the center of the hood to one side. It's passing through here, right? You've probably heard about different sanding techniques, you know, cross-hatching, 45, 45s. So that would be, if this rectangle's running this way, your 45, 45s would be that way, respective of the rectangle. That concept can go over the whole car. If you come in close in here, you can probably see some cross-hatch patterns of 45s, 45 where that's already happened. Follow that technique, you are absolutely destined to get the right shape. However, a little bit of a twist to that, I've found sometimes more of a 30-70 split can be more effective, especially in a longer rectangle like this. So let's grab a sanding tool. So we've just done a quick little sand down that strip, 45, 45, or your crosshatch. You can see that there's a line showing up in the center. Now that line in this little example here is not actually a problem with the car, it's a problem with the tool. The tool's being too big. Each side of this shape is starting to curve out. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. It's starting to roll up with a flat section in the center. Our block is hitting the edges. Simply, we just need to step down to a smaller block. We can just grab one of these little things, little mini spline, and now we can focus more on the center. Still doing the crosshatch. So in our rectangle that we concentrated on, we've done our 45 cross-hatching within that rectangle. However, we can see right here, there's a little area of peel that's showing up, okay? So we're going to call that a low spot. Now, that doesn't mean we need to sand this spot more. So don't go sanding here because we'll dig a hole into that area. What it means is we're trying to control shape for this whole length. 80 to 90% of this is correct. This little bit is low. So to sand this, we actually need to sand all of this down further. So we've got to make the call, either a little bit of fill or sand all of this until it matches our low spot. Don't go digging the hole out. Let's keep going a bit more. So we've sanded both rectangles, both sides of the center line of the hood, which is our bigger area. We have those all blocked out, really nice. Right on the front edge of the hood here, it starts to accelerate off a little bit quicker. So a little bit more curvature, and we've got this detail of a center line. Now, we can't do these right now on the hood because we need to match that to the rest of the car. So for now, we just need to work from here out to the rest of the hood. But we've done our biggest, longest rectangles first. They're all blocked out really well. Time to move on. Now, not all blocks are the same. It's super important to choose the right block for the surface. Let's forget this laser straight, barrel straightness nonsense. Nothing on a car is straight. This hood here, it may look flat and straight. It's not. Look, here's a straight edge. Put a straight edge on this, right? It has a low, shallow crown. It is not straight. So we cannot use a tool that is straight, hard, or solid. We need to use a tool that matches that character of surface. We need a tool that slightly flexes to give us a little bit of shape. As the surface approaches the front of this hood, if I shift this straight edge forward, you can see how much the shape accelerates off and how much that really curls down. So as we get into this area, we're going to need a tool or a sanding block that has a little bit more flex. It's a little bit softer, and it allows us to sand over that curve a little bit quicker. So as this surface runs down, gets to around here, it starts to bend over and curve over a lot quicker. Therefore, we need the sanding tool or the sanding block that can take up that amount of shape and naturally give us a nice, progressive, accelerated surface over the front of that hood. Really super important. Once we get these low spots showing up, we do not sand them. You cannot sand a low spot back to the surface it needs to be. Everything around it has to come down, or the low spot has to come up. But we can use everything that's happening on the surface to tell us what's happening. If we start rubbing through the high spot, so if we've got this big bare patch of steel popping up all the time, that is high. We can't sand a steel high spot down. You can't sand everything around it. If you see steel, you need to stop. Everything else around that bit of steel has to come up to match it, or you need to pull up and deal with that high spot. Low spots don't mean it needs more sanding. Low spots means the actual surface, like we talked about on the whiteboard, the actual shape of the surface dips in that area. Right in here, we've got a couple of low spots. There's one right here, there's another one up here, and right on this back edge. You can see where the tool, the sanding block, hasn't allowed us to sand into those areas yet. We're getting a little bit of dip in the surface here, and there's a nice big hole right here. You can see the peel from the application of the polyester primer. So what that means is that whole rectangle needs to be sanded down to match these low spots. If we see a high spot show up, we need to stop and pull up. We do not sand more in here yet. So look, this information on sanding blocks, go check out one of the other videos. We've got another video just on the sanding tool itself, and it's something we go into in a lot more detail in our classes, our training classes that we do. You know, controlling shape is something that's way more closely related to a clay design studio when the actual surface of the car is designed. But our job or our role as refinishing this car, restoring the car, controlling the shape, controlling the surface, is we're trying to not even return this car back to whatever it was. We're trying to make this car what the designer's intention was back when they designed this thing. So more information on the actual sanding tools and getting them to match the shape. And how do we know if this is a high? How do we know if this is a low? Like, did the designer want this shape or not? That's something we cover a lot more in our higher level training classes. But let's just move ahead with this hood and go through the blocking process. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew that there was more there if we needed it. Okay, we just cleaned all the dust off this. We finished our 120 sand. So all of our polyester now, it's all blocked out. It's all blocking out really nice. A little bit of a high area showing up on this side. That's our epoxy underneath. No bare steel yet, so we're all good. Left a bit of extra material across the front edge of this hood, especially around this center line here. You know, we want to make sure we want to blend this into the front nose later on when we throw the hood back on the car over there. Up close, we can see we've got really aggressive scratch marks. We can see our 45 pattern all through here. You know, so we've got to start refining it. We've left our primer, left our poly primer right on the top edge. We're going to sharpen up these lines later on so we won't hit them yet. We'll come get them in a finer grit. One little bit of filler missing right in here. It's only a tiny bit. Probably pick that up after another round of sanding. But right now, we want to grab our guide coat, hit it with some guide coat, and we'll probably step this one up to 180. So seeing there, we just finished up our 180 rub. You know, all guide coated everything, rubbed it all till guide coat's gone. Really happy with the way this has come up at the moment so far. You know, we're still controlling shape with our 180 grit on these tools. So we continued on our hard tools, so on our splines and on our little mini splines here. You know, we're controlling shape, and we really wanted these tools to tell us what was happening. Basically, there is no guide coat left that's telling us we have low spots. And the best thing is, no rub throughs to bare steel yet. There's a few areas in here, there's one over here. You know, we've got some epoxy showing up, so we're really close to hitting the steel, really close to getting to that high spot, but everything around it has leveled out perfectly. Bunch of filler up here. There was a repair up here, had some sort of vent or something in here before, the holes were welded up, so it's got a repair in there. We can see we've rubbed through the filler, but again, no guide coat left over. So 180 is done. All of our shape correction is done. We even sharpened up some of these lines. We'll probably do another video at a later date, you know, really how to get these lines nice and crisp with some tape and mark them out, get them all symmetrical, do all these little tricks. But right now, our shape work is done from here. So really, we need to step it up. We've got no rub throughs, you know, no metal, like I say, no lows, so no more repairs. Now we just want to get this to final primer. Could primer over some 180 grit, but we've got the material here and we want to get our primer on a little bit nicer, a little bit flatter, more even, more consistent. So we'll probably do another, let's do another round on this. We're going to do another round of sanding. We'll guide coat this again, step it up, 240, 320, somewhere there. But this next round of sanding, this is going to be surface refinement. So just changing surface profile, ready for the primer. We're not trying to control shape as much as we've done so far. What we might do though, this video's probably gone on a little bit too long already. We might do it, let's do a part 2. We'll do a part 2 on surface refinement, surface profile correction. And we're going to do that a couple of times. We'll do that now, ready for primer, and we'll do it again at the end of our primer, ready for paint. So once we get primer on this, the final prime, we'll do a surface correction, a shape. So shape, correct shape as our first round, and then we'll do a surface profile round, which is our final round of sanding, our round of block sanding, ready for color. So probably pull it up at that, and we'll do a part 2 really soon.